Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And sorry for the little delay this morning. We were having some technical difficulty. I'm here with Erika Fay this morning. We're going to be talking about identity, life mission, and values. Hopefully, we can take your mind away a little bit from the election. Erika, thanks for joining us. We are recording the webinar, and it will also be live on Facebook want to watch, and it will be available on our website after the event. We'll hear from Erika first, and then we go through Q&As at the end of this webinar. So if you want to submit your question throughout the webinar, you can do that in the chat box or the Q&A. And for now, I will pass it on to Erika, who is going to introduce herself. And we'll let you go with everything. Thank you, Erika. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks, Miriam. I'm happy to be here. I am really happy to be talking also about identity, life mission, and values. I have these things are important for so many reasons, and I'm going to get into that and why it matters to you. And I know Miriam alluded to the election and taking our mind off it. So I have to admit that this has been a welcome distraction, being able to prepare for this time with you. So thank you for being here, and I'm thrilled to be with you. So let's talk for a moment about this. Like, if we were to think about identity and life mission and values. So if you take, I actually was looking, when I was preparing, I was just curious, like, what is the definition in Webster's dictionary of identity? And one of the definitions from Webster's says the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. So that might sound pretty straightforward, but I think this is important for us as athletes, because if you're anything like me, it's easy to just define yourself by, well, I'm an athlete. And then that's kind of a singular definition. So that's one of the components of who you are. But by means of our time together, I'm going to give you some things to think about. And what I would love is for you to, if you don't already have a piece of paper and something you can write with, so you can kind of journal, because I am going to take you through some exercises here where you can really reflect and take something away from our time together now that you can use to create what matters to you in your life. How many times have we sat through a webinar and thought, yeah, that information is great, and then we don't do anything with it? Well, that's not my intention for you. My intention for you is that you take this information and you leave here with something that you have greater clarity about, and I'll get into more of my intentions in a moment. But the idea is you're getting something that you can work with now, and that means something to you and that you can use going forward. So with that being said, let's kind of move a little bit more into the mission and purpose. So if we were to look at the reason for purpose and life mission, it's kind of like a ship rudder, right? Like, it will help us to kind of move in the direction of something that feels in alignment with us. And knowing our life mission makes it a lot easier for us to make decisions. And when we also have an idea about our values, and I'm going to take you through a process to get clear on your values as well, that helps to guide our decisions. And it actually also informs our self-esteem and fulfillment and resilience. And just to give you a little background about me, I've been working with athletes and clients as a marriage and family therapist, and also a success coach for the last 20 years. So what I'm talking to you about is based on my personal experience. It's also based on my professional experience. And one of the things I've seen is that we all kind of got trained in an outside-in paradigm. And that is that we look to our external circumstances to determine what we're going to be, what we're going to do, what's possible for us. And I'm going to actually invite you to challenge that paradigm in our time together. And what if it's actually the other way around? What if our life circumstances, our results, are a result of what's inside us? So an inside out paradigm versus an outside in. And so when we are talking about this, I have this slide up here with the kind of the spiral and the 4 quadrants. So if you work with me, I talk a lot about the 4 quadrants of our lives. These are things that are all encompassing in these 4 different arenas. And so if you were to take a look at your at these quadrants, there's a relationship quadrant, meaning your friends, your family, your teammates, your coaches, anything that falls under the relationship, realm would be within the relationship quadrants. It could also include your relationship with yourself. Your health and well-being quadrant, that's another whole quadrant that has to do with obviously your health, your body, your physical well-being, and your emotional and mental health. And then also your vocation, which could be anything you trade your time and talent for. It doesn't necessarily have to be paid. And time and money freedom, which is just I like to say that's kind of the freedom quadrant. And why am I talking to you about these quadrants when we're talking about identity, values, and life mission? When you look at this kind of synopsis of your life, if you're like most people, there's 1 or 2 areas, maybe even all 4, that you would love to improve. And maybe there's 1 area that you feel like you have done a really good job at kind of working with and seeing the results that you want to see in your reality. And so one of the things that I've also seen, and I don't want you to be one of these people where, especially if you're a high performance athlete, it's easy for other quadrants of your life to kind of suffer to support that performance in your sport. And so I'm going to actually tell you that it doesn't need to be that way. Focus in your sport and being a high performer. And even if you're done with your sport and you're up, moving on to different things, being a high performer in one area does not need to cause other areas of your life to suffer. And there's a whole system that I take my clients through that can support you in kind of really understanding how this works. So today, for our purposes, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So here's my intention. If you're looking at your 4 quadrants and you're thinking about, how do I define myself? What's my identity? What's my life mission? And what are my values? I'm going to give you a 5-step process for identifying your purpose and why this matters. And then also at the very end, I'm going to give you an opportunity to create a vision for a life that you would really love living. And when I'm talking about that, it's not like froofy, like dreamland. What I'm talking about is, creating a crystal clear vision of goals and dreams, and then actually having a plan in place to go after those goals and dreams. And all of your goals and dreams, well, let me get to that in a moment. I get so excited about this stuff. I can go on and on forever. So let me start here. How many of you have ever achieved a goal or a dream? And when you first set out with that goal or dream, you had no idea how you were going to accomplish it? I know I have, and I'm guessing every single one of you on this call has too. And so if you think for a moment, just reflect on maybe the biggest goal or the biggest dream that you ever accomplished. How did it feel to accomplish that goal or that dream? Perhaps you kind of surprised yourself by how big of a goal or how big of a dream you were able to accomplish. And this speaks to one of the guiding principles that I just want to make sure that I highlight in our time together with you today. And that is that you are capable of far more than you know. And you may have heard this before, and it may sound like, yeah, I know that. But what if you really believed that? So if you're at a crossroads right now, say you're transitioning away from your sport for whatever reason, and you really did know, like, I'm far more capable than I'm giving myself credit for. What do you think kind of a difference that might make in the way that you approached your next steps? So that's just something to think about. And let me tell you a little bit more about this. You may have heard that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thinking. And this is absolutely true. So if you think about a time in your life where you knew that you were preoccupied or knew that you were anxious, and think about the results that you had in that performance. Perhaps it was in your sport, perhaps it was, when you're delivering a presentation, perhaps it was in school. But when when you were preoccupied and not focused on what it is that you were really doing, you had a different result. Now think about when you were feeling like you were in the zone and things were clicking and that everything was kind of falling into place. Again, a different result. So this is absolutely true. And I want to show you a little bit more about how this works, just really briefly. I call this the results formula. And this is important when we're working with our identity and our values and our life's mission, because we need to know where our results come from. So if we start off by looking, we have millions of thoughts per day, millions of them. And our thoughts are ultimately expressed into our feelings. It's not the other way around. So if you think about this, when you think confident thoughts, you feel confident. If you think scary thoughts, you might feel afraid. So our thoughts are constantly being impressed into our feelings. And then our feelings are ultimately what informs our actions. And you know this to be true too. You take very different action when you're feeling confident than if you're feeling anxious or afraid, or sub in the other feeling. And then ultimately our actions are what determines our results. So our thoughts are impressed into our feelings actually inform our actions, and our actions are ultimately what dictates our results. And when I'm talking about results, I mean what you're seeing in your life, the state of your relationships, how you feel about yourself, where you're going next. Say, you are at a crossroads and you're not sure what direction you want to go. You're wanting to find something just as meaningful and as purposeful for your life as sports were. So this is the good news. There's two essential energies that are actually required for change. And if you look at this, these two essential energies are pain and then a burning desire. So the pain of your problem and the burning desire for what you would love, those are actually essential for creating something new. And most people will kind of wait until the pain gets too much and then they'll make a change. But I'm going to suggest not you, because you're here with us today on this webinar. And so this is an opportunity for us to turn up the dial of the clarity on what might be another burning desire for what you would love. And we know, if you're experiencing pain right now, there's a lot of different circumstances going on in the world. COVID, if you're in the US with the election, all of these things, easy to get spun up on and to feel conflicted and feel pain around. But also without that burning desire, we'll just stay with the pain. So we want to stoke the flame of the desire for what we would love. And that's where purpose comes in. So if you look at this slide, purpose really helps you to be persistent and resilient at times when you're required to deal with life's most challenging situations. And it removes confusion when you're deciding what to do next. So I'm going to give you, like I said, a 5-step process that can help you to define your life's mission and your purpose. And I'm just going to go through the steps really quickly, and then we're going to go through these one by one. The first is renewed clarity of values. The second is uncovering what you're really passionate about. The third is taking stock in and acknowledging your personal assets. The fourth is your legacy. And then the fifth is finally defining your mission. So let's start off with this. There are a lot of athletes that have actually taken their lives to a whole new level and had a larger impact outside of the sport than, post-sport than they had when they were actually competing. And one of the brilliant examples of this, I think, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So he has a quote. I found this when he was being interviewed. He's always being interviewed about his life's journey and his success. And I'll tell you why don't I tell you about his success first, and then I'll read the quote to you. You can, I'm sure, read that. It's right up there. But The Rock was a college football player at University of Miami, and his dream was to play professional football. He did enter the draft and in the NFL, and he went undrafted. And he wound up actually moving to Calgary and was playing in Canada, but he got cut the first season. That led him to his career at the WWE, where he became a champion. And 8 years, which was 8 years before his acting career began. And now most of us know the name The Rock and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but his films have grossed, and I think this is the most up-to-date stat. I could be wrong on this, but in any event, it's in this ballpark. His films have grossed over $10.5 billion worldwide. And so he talks about being redirected on his path to success. And he has this quote. He says, "You got to have faith that the one thing you wanted to happen oftentimes is the best thing that never happened. So have faith and just keep that in mind and keep lugging away." And I love this story about The Rock. And I believe that, this is exactly where you might be right now. You might be feeling like a door has been closed, or something that you've been working your whole life for is no longer available to you. So what do we do when we're backs are kind of up against the wall and we're forced to pivot? Like I said, the first step in this 5-step process is to determine your values. And, the values may sound kind of like, oh yeah, I know what those are. But when you really get clear about what your values are, they're deeply held beliefs that govern and guide your behavior. And like I said earlier, we make decisions based on our values. So here's where I'm going to take you into an opportunity to do a little bit of self-exploration. This is one of my favorite resources, and I tell everybody who has the opportunity to talk to me about Googling Brené Brown and her list of values. Now, there's a million other things about Brené Brown's work that I also love, but I also think this is a really great jumping off point for the purposes of our time together. If you look at these list of values, this is not an extensive list, but it's a really good jumping off point. I'm just going to invite you to take a look at this list, and I'm going to actually give you 2 minutes to just journal the ones that pop out to you. And then before the 2 minutes is up, at the 1 minute mark, I'm going to invite you to stop selecting from the list and see if you can hone in on the values that you think are the most important, seeing if you can get it narrowed down to about 5. So go ahead and start. And I'm going to invite you to just write down all of the values that stand out to you. And then I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. So think about these values in terms of what kind of guides your decisions. How do you determine what you spend your time on? All right, so I'm going to invite you to stop for a moment and just look at what you have written down so far. And it's okay, you can go back and I'll make sure this list is available to you to complete the exercise, because I know we're kind of trucking on through this pretty quickly. But look at the list that you currently have, and if you have more than 5, circle the ones that you think are the most foundational to you, that you think they're the most meaningful to you. We've got about 30 seconds left. We've got about 7 seconds. Okay. So pause for a moment and just know that this is a jumping off point for you. The purpose of having you journal this is so that you do have something that you can work with going forward. And we're going to move along. So just keep your values in mind, or you can continue to kind of look at the values that you've written down as we go through this presentation, the rest of the presentation together. And I wanted to also bring in Bethany Hamilton's story, because if we're talking about kind of redefining yourself, some of you may know Bethany Hamilton is considered one of the most successful female surfers in the world. And at the age of 13, she was actually, while she was surfing, she was attacked by a tiger shark and lost her left arm. And so what Bethany has done in the midst of her challenge, not only did she get back to surfing again and get to the level that she is in surfing, but in 2011, she started a foundation called Friends of Bethany Hamilton to support other shark attack survivors and amputees, to encourage them to share their stories. And it's so cool because Bethany's also used her foundation to reach out to the victims of the Boston Marathon bombings, and has really supported them in giving them a voice and helping them to kind of have a group of people who have been through a similar experience. And so, you know, that's just an example of how Bethany was able to kind of put together her values and the next step in the process that I'm going to share with you right now, which is uncovering your passions and your internal fire. So, you know, when we're talking about uncovering your passions and your internal fire, this isn't about like, you know, just something that you like to do every once in a while, but what excites and energizes you, what truly brings you joy. If you're like most people, you might have to consider this for a moment. You know, if you think about like what motivates you for taking action, what excites you, what's the motivating force that fuels your action, and what brings you joy. That every single one of us is as unique as our thumbprint. So this is going to look and be different for every single one of us. But an example of uncovering a passion or an internal fire, I'll give you a couple examples, and then I'm going to also give you an opportunity for 2 minutes to write down some ideas that may come to you by means of this question. What excites you? What energizes you? What brings you joy? And what stokes the flame of your internal desire? So an example would be, I'm passionate about helping athletes find their purpose and passion and fulfill and exceed what they think is possible. Or I love teaching others about health and nutrition. Or I love running or rock climbing and exceeding and testing my personal limits. These are all things that are falling under this next step about really tapping into what you're passionate about, your internal fire. So I'm going to give you, like I said, just 2 minutes to the opportunity to journal on this and just write down everything that comes to your mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be spot on, but just write down the things that you do know that bring you joy. Could be spending time with your friends, or watching a certain show, or, you know, engaging in a certain sports activity. All of these things, just get them all down. This is all for the purposes of getting the ball rolling here. Something that you know, you don't even need like the fire to succeed. It's just there. Got about 1 minute left. One of my clients shared with me the other day, she's a professional athlete. She said, the thing that I love the most about my sport is that I get to inspire people. So what excites you? Have about 30 seconds left. All right, 10. Okay. Time's up. So I'm going to invite you again to be continued. If you're still kind of writing, you're still, brainstorming, give yourself the opportunity to come back to this and the space to really, sit with this question and see what emerges by means of this exercise. And let's talk about another athlete who has done something even greater than the scope that he had in his athletic career. So Mario Lemieux was considered to be one of the top 5 hockey players of all time. He's the only person to win a Stanley Cup, both as a player and a team owner. And he won back-to-back Stanley Cups in 1991 and 1992. And then he won one in 2009 as an owner. And so not only does he have, all of these accolades within the sport and as the owner, but he's credited with saving the Penguins from bankruptcy in 1999. And he's also been credited in being able to keep the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh because the franchise wanted to move. And so these are some of the things he's done, but he's also expanded his scope. During the course of his life, he overcame Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he established a foundation in his name that funds promising new medical research projects. Now, why am I telling you about these athletes? The same process that you're going through now with values, uncovering your passion, identifying your assets, and coming up with your legacy and defining your purpose. Each one of these people that I've talked with you about have gone through this process in one form or another. And the assets that you have, like I said, are significant to you and can be used to support you in living your mission and living your purpose. But first, we want to make sure we have a clear definition of what that is. So that brings me to our third step, which is identifying your assets. When we're talking about assets, most of us have been trained to think about things in the physical realm, money, securities, property. So here we're not looking at that. We're looking at your non-physical assets, your talents, your gifts, your qualities, your skills, your characteristics. And this might be a tricky one. So when I talk with people about kind of getting clarity around this, and I want to just celebrate you for sticking with me here, because I know we could spend a lot of time on each one of these steps, but I'm giving you the brief overview right now. But a great question to ask yourself around identifying your assets is, what do people say I'm good at? Perhaps you've been told you're a natural born leader, or you're a great listener, or a natural salesperson. All of you, I'm guessing, have been told you're a great athlete. Another way to think about your assets and identifying your assets is, given your interests, your talent, your skills, and your gifts, in what way do you make the world a better place? And when I'm talking about making the world a better place, that could be just for a moment, and it could be in your, day-to-day life. Maybe it's on a large stage, maybe it's not. So I'm going to invite you now to just, again, journal. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down your talents, your gifts, your qualities, your skills, and your characteristics. Think about what you've been told that you're good at. Think about what comes naturally to you that may not come naturally to other people. What are some of the qualities that you have that you know that you're proud of? Another thing you can do with this is you can take a look at what kind of qualities and gifts and talents made you successful in your sport, and make sure you write those down. So we've got about a minute left. About 45 seconds. You could even think back to something you were told when you were a young kid. Got about 20 seconds left. Okay. All right. So I know that, we're firing through all of these steps. So again, I just want to encourage you, if you feel like you need more time, to go back and give yourself the gift of time at the end of our presentation. And let's talk about another athlete before we get to step 4 and step 5. So Gerald Ford, I did not know this until I was looking around and doing some research for this presentation. In addition to being the 38th president of the United States following the resignation of Nixon, he was regarded as one of the greatest college football players in U.S. history. He went to University of Michigan, and apparently he would play the Michigan fight song in the Oval Office and before state events. But he actually declined to go into the NFL. He declined the NFL draft to go to law school. And as we all know, he became president of the United States. So, I love that story, because if we're looking at all of these things and how they combine, he has a legacy now. It's a legacy of being the leader of the free world. But he also has a great quote where he's talking about a specific game. I believe it was a game that he was playing against Minnesota, and it was a tough game. And his quote that he said that I want to share with you is, he says, "During 25 years in the rough and tumble world of politics, I often thought of the experiences before, during, and after that game in 1934. Remembering them has helped me to face a tough situation, take action, and make every effort possible despite adverse odds." And I love that. And I wanted to share that with you because I think that speaks to exactly what it is that we're talking about today. You have assets from your life experience, whether it's your sport, whether it's your experience in your sport, whether it's outside of your sport, your family, your health, all of the quadrants. That has qualified you to live your purpose. And that brings me to our next step, which is to describe your legacy. So this might sound a little morbid, but if you were to think back, like let's say your end date of your life is, way out there in the distant future, like long time away, whenever you would love it to be. How would you love to be remembered? What are the qualities that you would love to be remembered for? What are the characteristics? What accomplishments would you love to be remembered for? So kind of think about this as like a eulogy of sorts. If you were to look back on your life and say, here's the mark that I left, what type of legacy would you love to leave? So I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I'll just give you some ideas as we go through. And I'm just going to invite you to jot down what comes to mind here. So it might be really meaningful for you to be remembered as a really good and caring and loving family member. Here's where your values come in with describing your legacy. It could be the greatest of all time, greatest of all time what? What characteristics would you love to be noted for? And your accomplishments and your qualities. How would you love to be remembered if you felt like you lived to the utmost of life? You have about 1 minute left. About 30 seconds. Okay, pens up for a moment. So you have the bones of your legacy. You have your values. Again, the bones of your values. You've got your assets, and that brings us to the life purpose and the mission. So if you were to look at everything that you've written in these last few exercises over the course of these 5 steps, look at your answers and ask yourself these questions. What does this reveal about me? And then what's my mission? What's my purpose? So I'm going to give you an opportunity to journal on this too, because you're the highest authority on this. You're the one who knows what's most meaningful to you, and what, when you lay your head on the pillow for the very last time, when you reflect on your life, what will, help you to feel like you've lived your life to the fullest and had the impact that you would love to have. And the idea is, I'm going to invite you to write down all that comes to you, as I have been encouraging you to do, about what your mission is, what your purpose is, without editing it. And then eventually, over the course of a couple of days, I'm going to ask that you kind of revisit it and see if you can boil it down to 2 or 3 sentences. You want to be able to remember and recite it. And so it can be helpful to set the purpose statement aside for a day or so and then come back and review it, and new words may come to you. You'll know you're on the right track if you hear a resounding yes, or a feeling that rises up within you where you're like, yes, I would love my life, my impact, my legacy to be this. And you'll know if you feel kind of a piece of joy and serenity. So as we go into this 2-minute journaling activity, I'm just going to let you know what my purpose is. And my purpose and my mission is to support athletes in believing and living into the knowing that their lives have deep meaning and purpose. And to be the best mother, partner, friend, daughter that I can possibly be. So go ahead and write down any thoughts that come to you in terms of your purpose. your mission, and reflect on your notes from the previous exercises. So this might be an uncomfortable exercise for you, but just know that, highly successful people are willing to be uncomfortable in the interest of growth. And by not engaging in this process, this is how most people get stuck. So here you have kind of a pathway to opening up to even greater purpose and mission in your life. And so maybe you are a person who is willing to embrace discomfort in the interest of growth. That's one of your qualities and characteristics, a commitment to growth. You're willing to move beyond your comfort zone. We got about 30 seconds left. And one thing to know is that true growth and transformation occur outside of our comfort zones. So we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable in the interest of growth if we want to achieve great dreams. So we've got about 8 seconds left. Okay. So to be continued. By no means did I expect that you would be complete with that in 2 minutes. Maybe you are. In that case, that's awesome. But if you're not, give yourself, again, like I said, permission to come back and revisit this. And then let's kind of bring this in for a landing here. So, the idea is if we're going through this process and we're looking at, this way to uncover our passions and our values and what we would love our legacy to be and our life's mission, for the whole purpose of, really living life to the fullest. And you are the highest authority on what living life to the fullest would look like for you. I can't tell you that, and no one else can. And I'm the highest authority on what living life to the fullest looks like for me. But here's a question that I'm going to invite you, and I threw this out at the very beginning of our time together, but by entertaining the question, what would I really love? Not what do I think is possible? Not what do I think I can do based on what I've done in my history, but what would I really love? That's a very different question. Now, remember, your thoughts determine, the quality of your thoughts determine the quality of your life. So if you're asking and you're entertaining ideas, what would I really love for my life? Who would I really love to become? What kind of impact would I really love to have on my family, on, the community, on the larger world as a whole? Well, just maybe that's not the right question for you, but one of the main questions is, what would I really love? Knowing that that's a very different question than what do I think is possible. And let's apply what would I love to your quadrants. Take a look at your relationships. What would you really love in terms of how your relationships feel? Perhaps it's, having some really close friends that that you can rely on, that, are as supportive to you as you are to them. Perhaps it's a love relationship. Perhaps, you're in an existing love relationship and you'd love to take it to another level, feeling more intimate and more connected. And perhaps it's clarity around a vocation. What would I love? How would I love to spend my time and my talent? And hopefully by means of this process, you have some bones of a jumping off point with your assets, your values, your legacy. And also the freedom category. That's one of my most favorite, because we're not here to just work and then, die. Life is to be lived, right? So if you're asking, what would I love? What would I love for my time and money freedom to look like? where I'm able to go where I would love to go, give what I would love to give, be who I would love to be. You know, this is where having the impact that I would love to have the impact that falls into that category. And your health and well-being. Perhaps you've been struggling with an injury, or perhaps there's, you know, your body is, you know, working a little differently after a long sports career. What would you love for your health and well-being? Again, not based on what you think is possible, but what you would truly love. And these 4 quadrants and asking yourself, what would I really love, is how you begin to design a vision for your life. So you've got, you know, by means of the process that we worked through, you've got your life mission. Let's say you've gotten clear on your identity and your values and your life mission. Now, what would you love to do with that? What would you love? How would you love that to be expressed in your life? And there's a whole other presentation that I can go into around kind of defining what you would love for each of these quadrants and crystallizing your vision in each of these quadrants, but we don't obviously have time for that today. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer them for you. But I just wanted to get the wheels turning in terms of, you know, really asking the question, what would I love if I thought that really there were no limits to the possibilities that are available to me? You know, did The Rock know when he didn't get drafted in the NFL that he would go on to make, you know, movies that grossed $10.5 billion? No. Did Bethany know when she was in the hospital with her arm, you know, stitched up and doctor telling her that she wasn't going to get her arm back, that she would have the impact on the planet that she's having today and that she would surf again? No. So we're all faced with these challenges. And the idea is what we do with them is what can define us. And when we're crystal clear about our purpose and our vision and who we really are, which is far more than anything that we've done up until this point, that's when we begin to see where the magic happens. So I'm going to close with one of my favorite quotes. And this is by the wise philosopher Goethe. And the purpose of this quote is just to kind of put a little bit of fuel under what we've been discussing in our time together. You know, perhaps this sparked an idea for you. Perhaps now you have some food for thought that you could actually want to spend some more time with, so that you know you can get your wheels turning on an idea of or a direction. But know that ideas are the first currency of the universe, the first currency of like how we become what we become. And so Goethe said, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And I say, so do you. So it's been a privilege to be here with you. And my invitation to you is, you know, get clarity. You're far greater than what you've done up until now. And I look forward to seeing what you create in the future.
Erika, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was so refreshing and so needed this morning, and really nice to take some time to think more deeply about what we want to do. And I feel like this is an exercise that anybody can do at any point in their life. So it's been pretty exciting to take a moment to do that.
Yeah.
Do you encourage athletes to do this when they're still competing in training early in their career, as they retire, to review it as they go through their career? Can you tell us a little bit more about timing?
Yeah, sure. I definitely encourage athletes to do this as they're competing at any level. I mean, I've talked to college athletes about this, you know, high school, pretty much anyone who will listen will take them through this process, because I think it's so important. And as we kind of grow and evolve, we have new interests, we have new skills that we've acquired, we'd have new, you know, ideas that come to us. And so I think it really is, it's kind of a living, breathing thing. We're constantly like reviewing it. And it's funny too, because anytime I give this kind of a presentation, I'm always like, oh yeah, are my values still the same? And so I kind of can check in with myself too, to see. So yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend visiting the exercises at least probably yearly, just to check in. Like, I mean, just for an example, I thought, when I opened my private practice as a marriage and family therapist, I was like, I'm living my dream. I'm done. I'm good. And then I started to notice like, well, wait, what is this coaching thing? I want to actually work with, athletes in a different way than therapy. I wanted to support them in actually thriving versus moving from crisis to crisis. And so that's just an example of how, we continually grow and evolve if we're open to paying attention to, like I said, the burning desire of a pain, or even if it's not the burning desire of a problem, or, like something that we want to change, and what we would love to create. Just being open to that, I think, is a really important piece in staying open to continuing to, be in alignment with your true identity and what you're really here to do and be and give.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it, and I think it's so true that the more clarity you have, the more resilient you're going to be. And I feel it's so important right now to use this exercise and this reflective time to be able to be more grounded, not only, to deal with the outside world, the environment constantly changing, the uncertainty of the pandemic and other events. I thought that was so true. So do you see heavy links, especially as a therapist, between having clarity and resiliency, or clarity in your mental health?
Definitely. I mean, I think without a clear picture of what we would love to create in our lives, it's easy to go from thing to thing, or like circumstance to circumstance. Like, we'll all be happy when, like, how many times have we heard that? Well, I'll be happy when, when I win the gold, or but then there's always something else. So it's not external, it's internal. And the more we can practice with that, and that's the thing that I wish that they would actually teach in schools with our kids. Because if we were actually to realize that actually, if we train our minds, we can have an impact on how we feel, and we can have an impact then on what we would love to create in our lives versus just going from reaction to reaction. And I'll keep my political opinions out of it right now, but I'm just, I think sometimes in the climate that we see, it's easy to see that a lot of people are just reacting, and there's not a lot of like, coming from their highest self and breathing and like, what am I really trying to create here, versus like trying to just offload hurt. And so when we realize that we actually can train our minds, it's neuroplasticity, that gives us that internal control. Like we get to decide. It's not up to whatever goes on outside. Yes, there are things that we wouldn't choose, circumstances that we wouldn't, particularly select for ourselves. But if we're able to see that as a growth opportunity and like an opportunity to expand our hearts and expand what we even believed we were possible of dealing with, I think that's where the resiliency comes in.
Yeah, and I think being able to define your own, first, have your clarity, define your own standards that you're comparing yourself to, right? If you are driven by your internal wish and purpose, you will evaluate your result based on that, not based on outside criteria or someone else's objectives. And I think that's really important as an athlete. But if you look at social media, or if you look at society standards, so being able to have your own goals then helps you having the right standard to evaluate yourself against.
Yeah. And you made me think of another thing. I totally agree with you, and this is the thing, and I have to work on this too, because we're also results oriented. And I think that is obviously, the results matter. They matter, but it's also the process, like who we are becoming in the means of getting to the place. Like, if you think about the thing that you worked so hard for and you had like all these obstacles to overcome, those are the things that we feel the best about. So like, what if we were to really be able to enjoy the process of becoming while we're in it, versus looking to a destination to try and get us to feel a certain way? And I think that's not something that's not necessarily reinforced in our culture. And I know I have to still work on it, because I want to see the results all the time, and results are important, but also just reminding myself, like, this is what it looks like as I'm growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Erika, we don't have any additional question. Thank you again for this hour. That was really interesting, and I really like the pace and the fact that we took the time to do some personal work. So thank you again. Thanks for all the work and support that you have given to Athlete Soul. And I look forward to many more. Wish you a great day and a great day to everybody else as well. Thanks, Erika.
Thanks, Miriam. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.